What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition. You guessed it, you can't make this BS up. And I want to say before I get started that, guys, we have hit a milestone already. And that milestone is that we are now at 25 episodes. 25 episodes deep, everybody. We are making it 25 episodes deep. I just want to say thank you for everyone that has been supporting the podcast of true crime. I've reached out to one of the notorious podcasters, got a response back. So we should be doing some work hopefully in the next couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months. You know how people's schedules are. I'm still reaching out to a lot of other podcasters as well. I'm starting to figure out that I'm like a diamond in the rough, because most podcasters that are black that do true crime, they always focus on the crime that is done in the community. I actually like to focus on all crime. But my crime that I try to focus on is not only just the serial killers, but I also try to focus on the illegal activities of when people get, fall on the drug cartels. And I also like to look at the scammers. I like it all, because crime is crime. And I feel like that to be a true crime enthusiast, you need to be versed in all niche of the true crime genre. And that's what I wanted my podcast to be about anyway. I didn't want it to be just about, murder, or missing person. I wanted it to be a very open conversation in the true crime niche. And I'm cool with that. So, with that being stated, I want to tell everybody thank you once again. I did get a comment from a guy that was also named Joel, which is crazy. Got the same name I do. Let me go into my comment section. He left a comment, just doing his housekeeping before we get started. I thought it was pretty cool. He said, this podcast is absolutely fire. I love how Joel really keeps the audience engaged with all the details that is included in the crime. He commented on the betrayal in the church, the Randy Stone case, part 1. I want to say thank you so much, Joel, for being a supporter. I did reply back. I hope that you like the reply that I did give you, because, we need all that. We need everybody to engage and tell me their feedback about how I'm doing and how they are liking the podcast. So again, I'm on all platforms. If you see my podcast and you like it and you're binging on it for your long commute to work or whatever have you, please take the moment to tell me what you think about my podcast. Be respectful, because I am respectful back, because we all adults here. Tell me what you think about my podcast, what we need to work on, what we need to do, or just how much you adore it. But either way, just try to leave me a 5-star review, because it helps out with the actual discovery of the podcast, because that way people can see that my podcast is out there for others to enjoy. So today we are going to be talking about a man that is infamous in the state of South Carolina, especially in the PD area. And if you don't know what the PD area is, I'm from that area and I can tell you what it is. It's the Piedmont area of Florence, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Darlington County, aka Darlington Raceway. Let's see here, King Street area, man. Little River, Myrtle Beach, yeah, PD area to the inlands. That's what it's all about, man. So shout out to that area, Bennettsville, Bishopville, yeah, all that part of the PD area. If you hear the PD, that's what they're talking about. The great Piedmont area of South Carolina. It's right in the middle of South Carolina. You can't miss it. Very, very great area. to retire from. I hope that they have more opportunities than when it was when I was a kid, but I do know it's a good retirement area. So give me 1 second here. Let me pull my man's up here that we're going to talk about today. The man of the hour, the guy that still gives people the chills when you say his name. All right. I'm talking about to the point that people like, yo, this cat scares me type of guy. And I think that you guys will pretty much respect this gentleman being so near and dear as a legend in the true crime niche. I feel like that if you're going to be a true crime artist, you have to know this name. Like, you have to do a report on him. You have to know his name. I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, that don't mean nothing. What do you mean? Yeah, that's like one of the requirements. Him and a few others, you want to do, you definitely want to do their name. Like, you don't want to be that guy that don't do their name. So, well, with that being said, we're going to be talking about a man named Donald Henry Pee Wee Gaskins. That's right. Donald Henry Pee Wee Gaskins. This guy is one of the meanest men in America during his infancy. This man was just no one to play with. People were scared to deal with this guy because of his reputation. Now, this is where you're going to really flip out about this gentleman. Henry Gaskins was not that big at all. Okay, let's get this right. He was not that big. He was not what you would call very huge, anything like that. This guy stood at 5'2", and his weight as an adult was, I would possibly say, between 135 to 145 pounds. So he's not a big man, small man, but he has done a lot of damage. So this is going to be part one about it. So enough of me saying this, that, and the third. Let me go ahead on and jump into this story, because you're about to find and meet the Muggsy Bogues of the serial killer world. And y'all know, if you ever seen Muggsy Bogues play ball, or an Isaiah Thomas, not Isaiah Thomas on the Pistons, but Isaiah Thomas, the namesake of the guy that played on the Pistons. Short guy, but could really, really, really play ball. So let's jump into it. So this 4'2" I would say at this point of the game, 135-pound, a redneck serial killer from South Carolina, and everything, was one of the people that was on a main killing spree. Okay. And that killing spree lasted from 1970 to 1975. At that time, what has been recorded and proven, that Pee Wee has deleted at least 13 people in the PD Florence County area. But according to Pee Wee's personal account in his biography, that he has said he has killed 110 people. Now, the only guy that comes close to actually proving that feat, or being as close to Pee Wee Gaskins in murder, is Samuel Little. And I definitely will be doing a story on Samuel Little in the future on the podcast. But I'm quite sure Samuel Little and Pee Wee Gaskins, that would be a good battle to see, because both of them are pretty much very evil and very good at their craft when it comes to doing this type of thing. Let me go continue to keep going on into this story. Now, The person that wrote this book was named Wilton Earl. He took the time to organize this whole thing. He made it into a narrative, and the book would not be released until Wee Gaskins was executed. That was what he wanted. And they also said, too, that when it was time to take out Wee Gaskins for his crime, he was so short, he had to literally climb into the electric chair because, like I said, he's a small man, like us, with the body build of a teenage man, of a teenage little boy. But at the same time, he was just brutal, very, very brutal. All right, so the one thing about it is about Pee Wee that was a known fact as well was that he was only 4 pounds at birth, and that was why he got the nickname Pee Wee. In fact, he didn't even know his name was Donald until he stood in front of a judge at the age of 13, and they told him that, yo, this is your name. This is your birth name. But again, Donald wasn't even his birth name. Like I said before, his real name was, he didn't feel like it, he didn't know that his name was Donald. He always was called Pee Wee or Junior. But hey, that's just how it was. So anyway, we're going to talk about him being a part of the Parrott family. He was born on March the 13th, 1933 in Florence County, South Carolina. And his mother's name was Molly Parrott. Now, he was known as Pee Wee Parrott throughout his childhood. And there's not too much about his father. They said that his father was only known as Mr. Gaskins. He ran store on the next town over. He had some businesses. But what I was told, what's been said around the campfire, that Pee Wee Gaskins' father, real father, was married. And that he just basically had a fling with Pee Wee's mom. And after that fling was over, like back in the day, that's what they did. Oh, I'm pregnant. My baby. You better I ain't mine. I ain't the pappy. I got this family over here. My nice wife go to church, look good in the church dresses and stuff. How it was back then in the 30s and 40s and 50s. The scandals were not like it is now. I think if they had Instagram and all that stuff, they would have had just as bad scandals as we had. But back then, people were pretty much tight-lipped, especially women. Women really didn't have a voice. So if the man told them, I ain't taking care of this baby, and no, you better keep your mouth shut and don't tell my wife what I got going on, they just bit their tongue and did what they supposed to do, and didn't tell no one in town who the baby father was. And sometimes they would look up and get a guy that they could possibly maybe convince everybody that was the father of the child. So that's when his mother met someone that was a hardened criminal in their 30s. But anyway, let me get back to the story. Sorry, I got sidetracked on the writing. So by the time Pee Wee was 5, it was already very apparent that something was wrong. He had a little bit of an animal mutilation hobby at 5 years old. Now, he liked to pull the legs off bullfrogs, murder nests full of baby birds, and trap full-grown birds, just so he could pull the heads off with his bare hands. Now, this was at 5. Honestly, though, he's like 2 feet tall, but he's got the strength of a lion. You know what I'm saying? Now, here's the thing about this. This is one of the triads that they talk about in the serial killer world. Now, if you haven't never noticed this, and I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just telling you what I have did deep studying in, is that there's 3 parts of that triad that makes you into a serial killer. First triad of that is you like to hurt and kill animals. Now, when I say like to hurt, kill animals, I'm not talking about, oh, well, if you're a hunter, and you like to hunt for, for food and stuff and eat animals like certain game, and all of a sudden you're just this evil person. No, what I'm talking about is a child that, let's say for instance, the child sees a puppy, and the puppy is don't have an owner, just out there roaming around in things of that nature. Most people see a puppy, they're like, oh, that's cute, that's sweet, that's cuddly. Mom, can I have the puppy? But if the child is like, oh, that's a puppy, I wonder how it would look if I did so and so to it to make it bleed or to make it die. And they continue to do this with any animal they encounter. Now, that's part of that serial killer triad that I'm talking. So, getting back to the story here. So, there's not a lot of entertainment at 5 years old in 1939 in South Carolina. I mean, the only entertainment that was back then was the radio. And you got to understand, this is during the Great Depression, too. So, you either had to have a lot of money to have a radio, and you also had to be rich not to be suffering in the Great Depression at that time. And you got to remember too, back then in the South, they were still using outhouses. If you don't know what outhouses is, this is where you go and use the restroom. It's like a porta potty, but people back then had this attachment to the outside of the house. That was the plumbing. You go to the outhouse, use your bathroom, or do what you got to do. Then you go back into the main house. And usually they would use, buckets of water from a well or whatever to flush it, get rid of the waste or whatever have you, and you'll be able to use the outhouse again. Wee Gaskins has said that his childhood was filled with physical and sexual abuse from the strings of his mother's lovers, relatives, but relatives have said that Wee was lying, that he didn't even get spanked, which was odd for 1930 South Carolina. Now, I think that the reason why he didn't get spanked probably because, again, his mother had other children she was raising. And you got to remember, she had him out of wedlock for another man. I think the other children had different fathers too. So you coming from that time, as a woman with multiple fathers, and you not been married by one, I was extremely frowned upon. So yeah, back then they would be considered as what you hear a lot of people say that is an insult. And I'm just being 100, not trying to be racist, but I'm just telling you what they looked at it in the South. They looked at him as white trash. Now, the family said not only was he not spanked, he was treated very kindly by the whole family because of the fact that he was so cute. And because him being so cute and small and full of stature and had a nice smile, that he could get away with anything. And all you had to do is just smile and get what you want. Now, there's also a story that Wee told about his childhood that even if it isn't true, we don't know for sure, but it's at least tells you how he saw himself. And he said that when he was a kid, he went to a traveling carnival with his mom and his stepdad, a man named Hannett. Now, Hannett was again in his life, but I don't know how long. So while they were at the carnival, they swung by the reptile town, which boasted a king cobra as their main attraction. Now, Wee said that he watched as the barker took a rat out of the box and dropped it in with the snake. And the barker said a cobra will kill even when it isn't hungry. Wee said that as the cobra stalked his prey, he caught its eye, and through his own reflection in the glass, Wee's face lined up with the cobra's as they were kindred spirits. And in that moment, he was hard. He was aroused. And that's just what turned him on. He liked the fact that the snake could actually do that. Now, again, like I said, a lot of people think that this was fake, but some people say that it was true. But that's just what it is. Now, here's the thing. He didn't get beaten from his mother and other people in the family, but from the kids at school, they were always beating on Pee Wee because of his small stature and everything. Now, he did have a few friends. They all hung out in the old abandoned shack. They called it the hideout. And this is what Pee Wee said they did there. We would sit around and smoke cigarettes that we stole and bragged about how much we knew about girls. And we watched the older boys and learned. And again, viewer discretion is advised. This is going to be a graphic story. That's why it's going to be more explicit when I upload this. Learn how to jerk off or cornhole or fuck a sheep or a goat or a chicken. And we usually end up fighting about something because we're all so horny. You know? So they have pie eating competitions. It'll be how many pennies you can fit in your mouth. So basically, it just goes to show you that back then they didn't have no entertainment. And that's why a lot of people had a lot of babies back then. A lot of young girls was getting pregnant all the time because there's nothing to do. Ain't a whole lot of resources to tell you to wrap it up or whatever. So everybody just getting busy. Bad getting busy. So if you don't know what cornhole is, when they say cornhole each other, it basically means that you're pleasing another guy to masturbate while he pleases you to masturbate. That's what cornhole is. So that's what he was basically saying, what that meant. It's just weird stuff because they were bored and they had nothing else to do. So now these guys are bonded by all this and they started calling themselves the Trouble Trio. Now at first, the Trouble Trio was a lot closer to Porky's than the Devil's Rejects. For example, the first time they got in trouble with was for peeping into the outhouse at church. That's where you want the peeping of the old outhouse. And Pee Wee said the best part about looking and doing a little peeping into the outhouse, you can see the vagina and the duty. Oh my God. Wow. That was fun to them, really. Soon they moved to a more serious crime. They do a little bit of burgling here and there. They're breaking the houses, the stores, the cars for cash. And most of that money was spent on trips to Charleston. Now, see, where the South Carolina ladies of the night gathered due to the nearby military base, which is still there today and functioning very well, is what Pee Wee said about the experience. That's how we all three lost our pussy fuck cherries. But there was something, God, that is so disgusting. So there's something good that is so disgusting. That's what he said. Yeah, pussy fuck cherries. It's just the little turn of phrase, like, because, he calls it when he has regular sex with somebody. He calls it a love fuck. It's so fucking gross, every bit of it. It's just like into the mind of like a gross human being, gross human being. And he has seen so much more gross than such a 5'2" should be allowed to see. Yeah, it's crazy. But there was something about them whores that we didn't like. We agree that jacking off at the hideout was almost as good. Marsh thought the hideout was better than the whores. He liked cornhole. The younger boys letting them cornhole him, and he liked to, excuse my expression, suck dicks. And that on final three, I think Marsh was walking a different path in the rest of the show too. I would love to hear Marsh's sell pitch on this. Well, they're either having sex with women or going back and jerking off and staring in the eyes of their male friends. That is so crazy. You can tell by this last statement that he was starting to think of women as just objects because he kept calling them whores. So he thinking of women now as objects. He's not thinking of them as a possible partnership or someone he can have a relationship. So anyway, it's about to get real problematic very soon. So when these boys were about 13, the trio crimes were moved from regular small time mischief type stuff to an act of pure evil and disregard that years the boys started to wonder what would it be like to have sex with a virgin. And so all of them lured Marshall's sister now to their hideout. And they violated her and threatened her life if she told anyone his own sister. But thankfully, though, she almost immediately told her mother, and the boys were rounded up by the Marshall's family. And once they were caught, they were hung upside down in Marshall's backyard and were beaten mercilessly until they were black and blue and bloody. Now, I want y'all to stop for a minute and understand something. This is how they did corporal punishment back in the 1930s and 40s in the South. Corporal punishment was brutal. They will pick up anything to tear your behind up. Your mother may beat your behind with a metal clothes hanger. Just got whelps all over you for talking smack. Your dad may took this is a true story. I heard a lot of old heads told me their father did this back in the day in those times. Took a fan belt off of their truck or their car that they're working on, an old utility belt from that car part, and use it to wrap around their children, spanking them with it until they straighten up. So yeah, man, it was a different time back then. And they did not care how tall you got. So you could have been 6'6", 7 or 8 or 9 or even 10, towering over your father, who might have been like 6 feet, even a 6'1". He didn't care. He would still go at you behind like he was 5 years old. So anyway, at this point, after that happened, so long after they dropped out of school, which they already was dropped out of school because they dropped out of school when they was 11 years old. Okay, so at that point, they just on their own. And again, back then they did not have no truancy laws where kids had to come to school. They didn't have none of that. You know, if you didn't come back to school, they would assume that you had to help out on your parents' farm or land. Now, here's another tidbit about back in the day in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. If you notice, a lot of that generation of families would have large families. Okay, large families coming to eat on Sunday or whatever the weekend on the detail. And so, with that being stated, having a large family like that, these people were investing in the possibility of farming their land or doing work around their property. So if you had a large set of children to do that, to work on the farm, you got daughters to work in the kitchen, in the house, it made your life a whole lot easier. So that's why a lot of black families especially had large families in those time frames. So while most people would have seen this beating of these boys and what they did to the girl, would have went straight to the police and pressed charges on what they did to the girl and what the boy got done to him from the marshals. And it didn't work that way. Back in the day, it was considered country justice affair. The boys were set back loose. It would remind them that if they commit a crime around that family again like that, it would be worse. So that's why a lot of times, a lot of kids straighten up. Some kids was like Wee Gaskins, wait till the heat settle down and, the town quit talking. Well, all right, I'm going to go solo. I'm going to do something else by myself. So anyway, at this time, he's 13 in 1948. Pee Wee committed a crime that would send him to his first juvenile correctional facility, which right then was considered the boys' reform school back then, what they called it. Now, he was also getting smart about his crimes. He would even say in the book that the best time to rob a house was when the family was either at a wedding or a funeral. And on that day, the family was indeed at a funeral one town over. But what Pee Wee didn't expect was that they left the daughter behind. So anyway, when they walked in, the girl immediately recognized him, grabbed the hatchet, and started swinging. It unfortunately, though, Pee Wee was able to grab it from her and hit her square in the head with the blunt end, knocking her out. Now the girl survived. She was able to identify it was Pee Wee, and that's when they called him and they sent him to South Carolina Industrial School for Boys. Now this is going to be a pattern for Pee Wee Gaskins, going to several of these facilities for bad behavior. And it was also kind of interesting too, because Trent Reznor's grandfather also went to that school and taught him all of the sounds industry. It's the Industrial School for Boys Marketing. This story showed up when she saw him. The reason why she freaked it out was because the story about the Trouble Trio really scared the sister. I mean, she heard rumors of what they were up to. Now, Pee Wee, on the other hand, is building this reputation that would carry him throughout the rest of his life in South Carolina as one of the meanest men in the world. So he basically got people just saying, yo, Pee Wee's just mean and awkward. And he liked it like that. All right, y'all. Give me 1 second. Let me get a refresher right quick. I will be right back. Give me a moment. All right, I am back. Sorry about that, guys. I had to give me something to wet my whiskers. A second. Get something to wet my whiskers. All right. So anyway, while he was at this special school going to get rehabilitated, back in the 40s and in the 50s, these schools were known to be very violent towards young men and even girls. A lot of sexual abuse went through back then. A lot of people talked about this. Essays was going on, especially in the 40s and 50s. Like I said, as soon as he arrived in that school, that reform school, he became property of an older boy named Boss. Now, they said Boss was very much, how can I put this, dominant over people. He would SA him regularly and was regularly traded for things as insignificant as cigarettes. That's right. So after about a year of that, Gaskins gathered up a group of 4 other boys that he were also being traded, and they all escaped together. Now, while the others were picked up almost immediately, Gaskins was able to navigate his way through the swamps enough to make it all the way back home. But he was caught and brought back. But over the course of his 5 years in reform school, he escaped like 4 times. And each time it was because of the abuse and how he was just tired of being someone's punching bag. Now, on his last attempt to escape, he made it far enough to join the traveling Carnival. And very interesting to think about, this kid is been institutionalized, and now he's like on the road to live this wild carnival lifestyle. So Pee Wee and his former roommate and abuser Boss had had an uncle who worked at the carnival. and was able to set up Pee Wee with a job as a rustabout. Now, this is the job where you you're the person that set up and take down the tents and rides in each town. And so he was in charge of making sure that everything is put together properly, so everything, tents, rides, are effectively working. Now, Boss was there waiting for him, and they put the whole being traded for smokes and all that nonsense in the rearview mirror for now. And a decade-long friendship that ended only when Boss shot himself, and they had a funeral home after his entire family died in a trailer fire. Lord have mercy. So with them being 17, they still had their whole lives ahead of them. While they were working at the Carnival, Pee Wee met a Carney daughter named Mary. And about her, he said, I was around her and I felt like a combination of a lamb who couldn't bleed in a rhino with a 4-foot hard on. He believed in that. He said, I begged her to marry me. You see, it's nice. I married her, yeah. But what did he feel like a lamb that he couldn't bleed? A lamb that couldn't bleed a rhino with a 4-foot hard on. So I guess that's Pee-wee's way of saying it was romantic. So Mary became the first of Pee Wee's 6 wives. And this is one of the odd things about Pee Wee when it came to his family, or families, or families of the 6 wives. He wasn't, from what I can tell physically, he wasn't physically abusive to them. Now, he was neglectful and ready to abandon them at any second, but even after knowing everything he's done and even believing all the bullshit and the final truth, one of his daughters, which was on a documentary, had said that she loved him. And according to later on in life, what he did, he would travel. He had homes in different states where he'd meet, and he'll go and see his different families and put in time. He actually was weirdly responsible with his family, which also, kind of remind y'all of the Gary Ridge, Gary Ridgway and BTK. I mean, that's what they did. It's called separation of life from your actual psychotic tendencies. See, a lot of serial killers, and again, I'm not a certified psychiatrist or psychologist. A lot of serial killers want to have normal. They want to have normalcy, right? So what they do is they create a facade to have a wife to go home to feel completely normal. Now, do they divulge all their secrets like, oh, okay, I got this beautiful wife now, I'm going to tell her about how many people I killed or how often I think about killing people? No, they don't. What they do is they suppress it when they're around them, and they just play the role. But as soon as nightfall comes or they're by themselves and that urge hits, they act on it. And I mean they act on it. So that's why a lot of these serial killers have these double lives, and their wives are never is oblivious to what they got going on. For all they know, their husband is out there trying to get dressed or something, or tinker in the shop. But this is how it was. Then he would go and he'll be around for his kids in a way. Yeah, the daughters are like, I kind of know he done all them terrible things, but he's still my daddy. That's what they call him. I mean, that's what they looked at him as. And he didn't do bad to his children. He just, took care of them and just killed other people. When Pee Wee was released about a year later, because he, decided that it's time to go back to this reform school, finish up his time, and so he could quit being on the run. In 1950, Psychiatrist, who examined Pee Wee, wrote a letter to the prison officials And in the letter, he strongly stressed that Pee-wee was by no means ready to be released into the world. They wrote, "We consider him dangerous and also believe that he has the homicidal tendencies peculiar to a paranoid type." So that this is a really Dr. Loomis type, and that's what it is. I mean, he just trying to tell him like, yo, this man is not right. But anyway, they ignored all that. They were like, yeah, he'll be all right. You know, dude is still got a whole lot ahead of him. We let him into the world. So being fresh out of reform school, Pee-wee career options was just limited. But that's all right. He got his lucky break when he ran into a friend of his from the inside named Slick Duck, who got him working with tobacco fields. Hey there, Pee-wee. Hey, what's going on, Slick? Yeah, you may remember me from my last name, Lovey Bird. Yeah, but what's going on? Hey, Pee-wee, you want to come with me and get into the business of cancer lettuce? It's a lot of fun. And then next thing you know, they were doing a scam. So they've been working on cahoots with some local tobacco farmers. The two would still harvest the tobacco from the barn, burn it down, burn the barn down to hide the evidence of the theft, and then sell the tobacco upstate. And there was nothing as cool and as satisfying as the smoke coming off of those delicious South Carolina tobacco leaves. Absolutely. Now, it was the process that paid the boys to do it. They were getting a cut, and this is hefty insurance payouts. But you gotta remember, this is a commercial type of contract that they're supposed to be selling enough tobacco to make the products that everybody needs to continue smoking. And if everything ain't lining up right, then you got people that's going to be giving you a problem. But see, pretty soon Slick Duck got picked up along with one of the landlords that happens that will, that one of the landlords. And when you at the Slick Duck, which it seems like it's too difficult to pick. So anyway, you got the old landlord had gone away with Slick Duck. A new landowner came in, and the new landowner, aka landowner, not landlord, came, and the landowner's daughter. So one day, as the daughter and a friend were walking by Pee-wee while he was working, they gave him a little bit of a sass. Just a little bit, nothing too terrible. You don't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah. So in retaliation, Pee-wee lost his temper and hit the girl twice in the head with a ball peen helmet. And cracked her skull open. She died. But for the crime assault with a deadly weapon, Pee-wee got 5 years. Now, if you want to know why he had this hammer, it was like he had it around his tool belt and everything, because he also did maintenance and things of that nature too. But nothing prepared Pee-wee on what he was going to have to go through in an actual prison. Because in the first few weeks, nobody said a word to him. And Pee-wee had said that the purpose of this was to make new meat, as new prisoners were known as scared and unsure. So they pretty much accept whatever fate befell them. Once the shoe dropped and the shoe came in the form of a prisoner that Pee-wee said had biceps the size of his thighs, as named Arthur. The only normal name people hear, yes. And that is almost scary now, because this person got a name that's a name that's not a nickname. So Arthur was what Pee-wee called a power man. Now this is how it works. Now this is back in now. Power man now, and I want to give y'all straight, because some people that have been to jail and served time. I've never been to jail. I'm not gonna say that I'm versed in that language. But what I have studied and researched and talked to people that have been in jail, power men back in the day were considered to be like the guys that ran the block or shot jail. Every jail has a shot caller or shot callers. Most of the time, it's more than one shot caller calling the show. They work like a council. Now, there are some prisons that don't have any shot callers, but one, and he runs everything. That's one of your smaller prisons. He's the big fish. Nobody's not gonna test him. They already know what it's gonna be. But anyway, he was like the boss of the prison. At any rate, once Arthur claimed Pee-wee, he went from being new meat to being nobody, because now he became Arthur's boy. Now again, the word boy in prison is a term of when you turn a hetero man or a man that had hetero looks or hetero tendencies into a full-fledged female. Now, in jail, what I've heard, these guys when they turn these guys out, they make these guys start wearing extra tight fitting uniform pants. They make them start putting on lipstick, start making them shave. That's right, they make them shave all the time. They can't have no hair on their face. None. Because you are supposed to be representing beauty, a woman to them. Makeup, the whole nine. So yeah, it's real out there in the prison world when you become a boy. So anyway, Pee-wee did not like being in this situation, and he felt like the only way he could be out of being on the property of a power man was become a power man himself. So he might have been little, but he would still have power. He could still make decisions. So this is what caused Pee-wee to get his first murder. So he looked for the biggest, strongest, most feared power man and found it in the form of a violent psychopath named Hazel Brazen. So far, the meanest people have been named like it's a Dr. Seuss book. And that is it. You know, I mean, it's just being honest. But apparently, if you called him Hazel, he'll kill you. So you had to go with Brazel. So Brazel, everyone called him Brazel. All right. But since Pee-wee was so small, he had to be a little sneaky about it. So now, over the course of a few weeks, Pee-wee ingratiated himself in the Hazel's crew, bringing hot cooked meals. Let's see here. I'm trying to see. All right, so he gave him oatmeal, all the stuff he liked. So anyway, Pee-wee, I don't know if he was working in the kitchen or knew someone in the kitchen, but he was able to go into the kitchen and to get a knife. Now he knew that this was going to be a tough fight, and he also knew that this man had two people guarding him at all times. But luckily for Pee-wee, one of the guys was elsewhere, and Hazel was taking a dump naked. So, fair line, right? We have to get totally new. So anyway, Hazel man is at the door, asks if he should sit Pee-wee on in, regardless of the fact that Hazel was taking a dump. And according to Pee-wee, Hazel farted real loud and grunted and said, yeah, looked a little pissy in Pee-wee. Anyway, he walked up to Hazel, he pulled out the knife and stuck it in Hazel's neck. And he then pulled it across towards the Adam's apple and opened up. Alright, so it's a king's deal that Elvis Presley said the president said even one of us is going to at least have a heart attack on the toilet. Yeah, man. So anyway, when Pee-wee got out of solitary confinement, because they had to put him in solitary confinement because of this, he now is a power man. So after he done put in that work to be a power man, Pee-wee had a smooth sailing in Stanton jail. He proved to them that he was one of the good guys. He could do what he do. But in 19th, we got some bad news. His wife Mary was divorcing him, so she stuck around for a long time, about 5 years. So he decided that he needed to get picked up ASAP. What I tell you. Anyway, since he was a power man, he was able to call in a few favors, especially in the garbage disposal sector. So he basically got down into that, and yeah, but anyway, I'm getting tired now, y'all. So I'm gonna have to end on part 2. On the part 2, we are gonna talk about how he slipped off from the prison, trying to patch up things with his woman. Okay, be 48 minutes in. I want to say thank y'all once again for rocking with me. Again, this is part 1 of the series of Mr. Gaskins, part 2. We're going to go in depth about him meeting his second wife and more stuff that he started doing to his children. So until then,